Receiving a cheque for £500,000, the trophy and the title, 2025 Halo World Snooker Champion. A star is born, and his name is Zhao Xintong.
As the 2025 World Championship wrapped up, snooker legend Stephen Hendry sat down on his podcast to reflect on the tournament. Joined by Mark Watson, comedian Tim Key and presenter Rick Edwards, Hendry dived into the performances of his fellow players. He first shared his thoughts on Zhao Xintong and made some heartfelt comments about the rise of Chinese players. Zhao Xintong's rise to the top of snooker has been anything but ordinary. At just 28, he became China's first ever world champion, brushing past Mark Williams with a calm 18-12 win at the Crucible. It was a moment that rewrote history books and gave Chinese fans the kind of pride usually reserved for Olympic golds. What makes it even more surreal, Zhao had just returned from a 20-month ban for match fixing. Most people would have taken years to rebuild their reputation.
When he won the UK Championship, obviously, was it 23, 22, 23? I think everyone knew what kind of player he's 24. Everyone knew the player he was. You could see it. And then obviously what happened. What a waste of 3 years of a career. What could he have won?
But Zhao stepped back into the arena like nothing had happened and took down a list of snooker's best players, including Ronnie O'Sullivan, Chris Wakelin, Lee Pai-fan and Jack Jones on his way to the final. And then became the first Asian player to lift the World Snooker Championship trophy and take home the massive £500,000 prize. It was a fairy tale ending for someone whose career had nearly ended before it truly began. But while China was celebrating, not everyone was lighting fireworks. Stephen Hendry, 7-time world champion, and someone who knows what it takes to win, had a different angle. He pointed out that while Zhao was now the national hero, another familiar name might be feeling left behind: Ding Shunhui. Ding had been China's snooker poster boy for over a decade. He paved the way, carried the expectations, and got painfully close to winning that world title more than once.
Yeah, Ding won't. If it's me, if I'm Ding Junhui, I'm not happy tonight. I'm not happy for because I am the, and I don't know Ding well enough. Maybe he's close to judging. Maybe he's delighted from. But I'm just, if it's me, I'm thinking, oh, I'm not happy that I've had so many years to do it. I couldn't manage to do it. This guy's come along on the back of being out of the game for 3 years
and done it first.
Just done it first attempt,
yeah.
Qualified and done it.
But it never happened for him. And now Zhao, after nearly 2 years away from competition, shows up, qualifies, and casually wins it all. Hendry imagined how Ding might be feeling. He must be happy for Zhao, but also frustrated that his own long journey never ended with that same trophy. For years, Ding Shunhui was the face of Chinese snooker. Every major event in China, Ding had to be there. He was often the co-promoter, the headliner, the main attraction. But with Zhao Xintong's win, things were clearly shifting. The spotlight wasn't automatically reserved anymore.
Let's
will be
call
fuming.
it as it is. Ding will be furious.
If it was me, I'd be fuming.
Of course you would.
Fuming.
We don't like anyone winning snooker games apart from
But
you.
the fact is, Ding is snooker in China. Ding Junhui is snooker.
And that will change now, presumably.
Overnight, he is not Mr. Snooker anymore.
Still, despite what people expected, Ding didn't throw shade or sulk in a corner. Quite the opposite, actually. He went on social media and showed nothing but support, sounding more like a proud older brother. He congratulated Zhao and reflected on the journey. He explained how breaking barriers in the past had created a smoother runway for the next generation. And now, someone had sprinted all the way to the finish line. That someone was Zhao. According to Ding, this win wasn't just Zhao's. It belonged to everyone who ever played snooker in China, and everyone who had hoped for a moment like this. He said that the darkness they once walked through was just part of the journey, so others could see the light. And now that light was shining right on Zhao. Zhao, for his part, didn't miss the chance to show respect. He thanked Ding for pushing the boundaries back then, saying it was those early efforts that made the path wider for today's players to run on. But Hendry didn't stop with Ding. He turned his attention to another giant of the game, Ronnie O'Sullivan. He admitted that this year's World Championship had been a strange one for Ronnie. At first, it wasn't even clear whether he would play. But in typical Ronnie fashion, he showed up, and despite not playing at his best, still made it all the way to the semi-finals. Hendry pointed out that Ronnie wasn't really pushed in the early rounds. He had control, faced a little pressure, and got through without needing to reach his top form. There were a few signs that things weren't clicking perfectly, but those seemed to be covering up a deeper issue. He simply wasn't playing as well as he usually does. Still, making it to the last four without his full game on display said a lot about his natural ability. And then there was Judd Trump. For a good part of the tournament, it felt like it might finally be his time again. He played with focus and seemed to have everything under control. Many thought this could be the time for him to win a second world title. But that run came to a stop against Mark Williams. And from the way he handles defeat, it seems true. He accepts the outcome, avoids drama, and moves forward. Hendry pointed out a key moment against Mark Williams when Judd was 73 points ahead and should have stretched it to 83. If he had, the whole match might have gone differently. But from that point on, Williams took control and dominated, knocking Judd out of the championship. Hendry said it was a shame we didn't get to see a Trump final, which would have been something special. Then he talked about Kyren Wilson, who's had a great season, but faced disappointment going out in the first round. Despite all the talk about the Crucible curse, Kyren seemed like someone who wouldn't be fazed by it. But the pressure of walking out as the defending world champion on the big stage appeared to get to him. Even though Kyren admitted he was nervous, he had a 6-3 lead going into the evening session and looked set to win. But when the evening came, he just couldn't keep it together and fell apart. Something similar to what happened to Luca Bressel last year in his first-round match against David Gilbert. Still, Hendry praised Kyren's season, saying he's improved a lot since winning the World Championship last year. Winning 4 titles as world champion was more than many expected, which showed real progress. Then Hendry turned his attention to Mark Selby. It had been a strange season for Selby, ending with a surprising first-round loss to Ben Wollaston. It was almost the same as last year's early exit to Joe O'Connor. Hendry had high hopes for Selby, especially after his strong play in the Players Series, and thought he could go far in the tournament. Selby's record since winning his 4th world title has been solid, but Hendry found it surprising he hasn't added a 5th yet, given how good he is. He wondered how Selby himself might feel, stuck on 3 titles, all won so close together. Hendry admitted he didn't have a perfect answer, whether it's better to have a few big wins or many smaller ones, and joked that he was still stuck at 0 himself, so he might not be the best judge. But 3 world titles is still a very impressive career by any standard. Then Rick Edwards threw out a thought-provoking question. Hendry laughed it off, saying the question was tricky, and that it was tempting to think maybe Judd Trump has fewer titles than he should, given his talent. He also teased the idea of naming a player who only won once and probably shouldn't have. That could really stir up some debate. But he quickly dropped it, not wanting to go down that rabbit hole and risk offending anyone, especially John Parrott, who's sometimes joked about as the most hated man in snooker. Hendry ended by saying maybe some players shouldn't have been world champions, but then retracted the comment, keeping it all in good fun. And that's a wrap on today's video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.